Hello, welcome to Flower Juice. My name's John McDonald, and today we're going to have a go with this Agra-Wool. So this was something we touched on Friday just to introduce it. And this is a product that basically is foam free. So they're calling it a wool or a foam, but essentially it's like a compounded rock wool that's held together with a sucrose material. So this is totally biodegradable. This can go in the compost heap. So if you're looking for an alternative to the regular foam that we all know, then this is possibly something that you might want to try out and give a go to, because it is quite important that we think about improving the environment and that we improve the industry as well. So this is how it comes. It comes in blocks. It does have like a kind of layers effect, and what they suggest is that you use it more up and down the way rather than flat. So I think that's maybe something that they should think about, is if they're making the blocks this shape, that they just rotate it and make the block that shape but on that line might be interesting. So the first thing we need to do is just to soak the actual foam or actual wool. I think maybe foam is the wrong word. Now that literally sinks straight away. So whereas foam takes maybe 30 seconds to actually soak, you just lie it on top. This soaks pretty much immediately. And as you can see, it's got a fair amount of water. So when I hold it like that, it's holding the water really well. Obviously, if it's more on its side, then it's kind of losing it, but that's the same with foam. So we're going to put it into our tray, and I'd love to say that I actually hadn't had to go with it, but I did make a mistake with my video, my first version, which was with the sound. So unfortunately, we lost the sound, and that's why my materials are all short. So I have had one go, and what I did with that first go was cut this so that there was like the wool side on the edges, and then it vertical in the middle. Now that kind of was okay, but you actually ended up, the way you cut it was you ended up losing a bit of the block, so you actually had less to work with. Now you're probably thinking, why are you using a plastic tray? Well, I don't have an alternative, but what you can do, if you want to go completely biodegradable, you can buy like bamboo food dishes. So these dishes will biodegrade. You can also use like cardboard tray. You can buy a plastic film that is biodegradable. So if you were to take like a cardboard tray, line it with that biodegradable film, then you can add your block. And then the other thing as well is we're using a twine just to secure it rather than a plastic tape. So what we've done is we've soaked our foam, or we've soaked our block. We've got it vertical so that it's easy for stems to go in, and now we can add our materials. So I wanted to really use a funeral item as our first attempt or our first use, because this is probably where the majority of foam is used in floristry. So if people could move on to something that is like this with funeral items, then that really would make a huge difference to the amount of material going into the environment. So it's interesting using a different product. And when I think back to when I first started with flowers, it was a Saturday job years ago. And actually floral foam had only really just started to become available. And for a good few years, it went through quite a few variations. So we might find this with a product like this, that it will actually be improved and revisited and have changes that will make it better. But when foam first came, people were quite skeptical, not necessarily enthusiastic, and yet it just got better and better. And that, of course, has really improved the opportunities for customers and florists. So as you can see, I'm just creating a base with our foliage. And I think if you've got stems that are quite firm, then this is going to be no problem at all. So really with this layered bit, stems just go in, no problem at all. But from the side point of view, you definitely need to have them cut on an angle and nice and secure. So when I did the first version, which looked lovely by the way, I have to say I put all the foliage in first. So for this one, I'm not going to put all the foliage in because in a way it's better to have access to the flowers or to the foam for the flowers. And I found that when I was using the tulips were harder to put in because I couldn't really see the foam. So we've done a basic base of foliage, and now we can put in our main flower that's going to be in here, which is going to be these lovely roses. And you can feel the stems going in. And when I first got into flowers, I was always told if you can put your stem down to the bottom, then that is really going to give you the best access to the water that's in there. And that's a very good way to think, actually. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating this central line of main roses. And this really will give the spray visual impact. And the thing with a funeral item is you tend to be looking down onto it anyway. You know, you don't tend to, it's not sitting on a table, it tends to sit on the ground. So actually working the flowers into this area here is really not a big problem. But I can feel that they're going in and they're secure. So what I'm doing is I'm tending to grip the stem with my fingers and then really guide it in, and that's working quite well. So I think the next flower we want to put in are going to be the tulips, just because, as I say, they were a little bit less good at going in. Now that's working much better on the angle. This is where I need my glasses. And the other thing as well, we can make a hole, a guide hole, just to get that in. In fact, I quite like the idea of a guide hole, and I think the ivy's going to give me the better way of making the hole. So I would say when you first use this, because of the way that we've all been working, you're going to find this a little bit odd. But I would say if you value looking for an alternative, then the more you work with the product, the more easy this is going to become. You're just going to become completely au fait with how best to place the flowers, how best to work with the material. So really there, doing the little pre-hole on the side, that works really well. So you can see we've got our main flowers of the roses. We've brought the tulips in as a secondary flower. I really want to bring in these lovely gerberas, just to bring a little bit of weight into the centre of our design. Now, that one. looks good. This is interesting actually, leaving out a bit of the foliage, because what I used to find when I had my shop was that the more foliage you add earlier on, yes, it's harder to get access to the materials as well, but also you end up using more foliage. So if you're buying your foliage, that's something that's going to cost you more. So in some ways, holding off a little bit on foliage is a good idea. I've got a little bit of berried ivy there, and we've also got a nice trail of ivy, just to add a little bit of interest. And I also had a little bit of privet. I quite like the colour of the privet. It's giving a little bit of a wintry look. And again, it's got the strength to be put in quite easily. So we can kind of use the privet just to come out a little bit and give this a little bit more depth. Now, I don't tend to buy these or use these very often, but I do have some little spray carnations, and I really just wanted to try out a range of different flowers. So the little spray carnations, just to see how they would work. But again, they've got a good strong stem, so I'm not anticipating them having any big problem. Yeah, so even going in from the side, that's working pretty well actually. And we still need to bring the return at the bottom. And a little bit of foliage just down here. So as you can see, the colour of it actually is quite good. It doesn't jump out as being, you're looking at a base. It's just quite a neutral item. Now, I also had one or two little chrysanths, and we're just going to pop them in, because as I say, I wanted to try out a few different things. So again, this is really just to bring in some body. When I first started with flowers, chrysanths were brilliant. You got really good chrysanths with nice long stems for cutting, and you could break them down. But now, of course, the industry is really focused on hand-tie bouquets, so a lot of chrysanths don't have the length on the stems for actually breaking down into little useful flowers like this little flower here. You used to be able to have much longer stems on these little individual flowers. No, they're not so good. And of course, we're kind of off season just now as well, so some things aren't as strong. I think when you're putting the flowers in with this, you need to be a little bit, give the stem a little bit of support as you're doing it. And we just want to do like a final little check on any gaps. So like there's a little gap. So there we go, we've got a nice simple funeral item, and this is quite traditional, but I think this is what a lot of customers would like as well. You know, not everyone wants something very different. So this as a base has worked very well. It's holding the water, it's got a certain amount of weight, nothing's falling out. You can see there's water there. And yeah, I think it would be an interesting thing to offer your customers and give them a choice, or even as your business to move towards using more of this type of product and exploring ideas. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, click here to subscribe. We have new videos every week and we'd love you to join us to watch. So take care and see you soon.